Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we're going to take a look at another of these Collecta tubes filled with prehistoric animals. This one looks to be dinosaurs. I think there might be a pterosaur in there. I'm not entirely sure as they're a little hard to really see at this point in time, but I am really excited to get them out, find out what species are included exactly. I have reviewed 2 of these tubes so far, and both of the other tubes were total wins, so I'm thinking that that's probably going to be the same case with this set. But regardless, let's break it open, take a look at it, and check out what species we've got. So initially we've got a Pteranodon, very nice looking Pteranodon here at first glance. We've got a Tyrannosaurus Rex, the feathered version, which I have actually reviewed on the channel before when it came with the AR app that Collecta had recently released. We've also got a Parasaurolophus, a very cool looking Stegosaurus, a MOSASAURUS, which looks really awesome. We also have a Pachycephalosaurus, a Triceratops, a Diplodocus with a horribly warped neck at this point in time, a Baryonyx, which I don't know where to put, there we go, and a Kentrosaurus. So we've got quite the set full of species here, really quite a few, and I am excited. Too excited to take a closer look at them, so let's do that now. So the very first one we're going to take a look at is the Diplodocus. Even though he has a really bad warped neck, it's going to take some of the hot water, cold water trick to really get him back into place. But you can see if we take a look up here at the head sculpt, the head sculpt looks very nice, but it's incredibly small. Impressive that they were able to paint the eyes on as well as they have, because that head sculpt is really tiny. This very much so looks like the larger version of the Diplodocus that they had released a while back, which I am a huge fan of that figure. And this figure also has that very same rearing up type pose. Really looks beautiful. I'm not sure if you can now. You probably couldn't put him down on all fours. So for a shrunken down version of this, it really looks nice. They haven't included quite as much paint application on this one as they had on the larger version, but that's kind of just the way it goes. There's not much dinosaur here to include paint application compared to the larger version. The overall sculpting of this really looks beautiful though. You can see just how incredibly nice the overall skin texture is. And the paint application also looks really nice, looks very natural, and very similar to the original, just not quite exactly the same. It does have a beautiful pose to it, with it rearing up, kind of eating some vegetation from a higher tree. Very nice curvatures here in the tail, and again a nice long line of ridges that run along the spinal column of the dinosaur. You can really see just how beautiful that skin texture is on the Diplodocus. I also like the nice light green that they've included on the underside. You can actually even see the cloaca there. So even on the minis, we always get that really nice realism with our dinosaurs. And yeah, overall, this is a really nice looking Diplodocus. It really is. If he didn't have this crooked neck, he'd look beautiful, but that's not Collecta's fault. That's just the fact that it was kind of crushed in the tube, so we'll go ahead, straighten that out at some point, and I'm sure this will look fantastic. Then we've got the Kentrosaurus, which is actually very small, and there's not really any paint application at all to be found on this guy, shockingly. The only paint app is really in the eyes. You've got black pupils for the eyes. If we can get this to zoom in without losing our Kentrosaurus completely and somehow focusing there, you can kind of see it. You can see that the eyes are actually painted really nicely. Maybe a little bit too thick on this side, but it actually looks pretty good. And the overall sculpt of the Kentrosaurus is pretty nice. I will say that it's got some very nice skin texture, some beautiful musculature, very nicely shining through in the sculpt. I really would have just liked some more paint on this one, because even the plates and the spikes and shoulder spikes and everything, you've really got nothing at all as far as paint application goes. I know this is a very small figure, but some paint app would have been nice. It's also unfortunate that they actually put this stuff here, like the Collecta logo and everything, on the side of the dinosaur as opposed to the underside, but there's not really too much room on this Kentrosaurus. It is very small. So I guess you've got to put that on there somewhere. It does still look really nice, just it could have been a lot better if there were more paint. Then we've got a Triceratops, which I actually really quite like. The overall sculpting of this is really beautiful. It's even got some of those quills here on the back of the Triceratops that Collecta really loves to include on their ceratopsians. You can again take note of the very nice skin texture and some beautiful musculature all over this dinosaur. Really has a very nice appearance to it. The head sculpt looks really good as well. You've got some paint on the horns, and the actually, for some reason, paint on the lower jaw here. Oh yeah, I guess you could see it. It's just not perfectly painted. It's a little sloppy on the lower part of the beak, but the upper part looks pretty nice. The paint application on this one is also very basic, as the spikes, and that's kind of sloppy on the back of the frill, but the little spikes that kind of run the frill of the Triceratops, along with the horns and the beak, are all the same color. There is no difference in coloration, and the body does appear to have a few tones. Like, it seems like it gets darker in some areas and lighter in others. When it comes to the skin texture, and specifically the face, appears to be a little bit lighter than what you see in most areas of the body. I think the eyes are painted perfectly. They really, really look great. I definitely do like the sculpt of this Triceratops quite a bit, and overall is a really beautiful looking Triceratops. I think a little more paint application or a little bit of a flashier paint scheme could have helped it a little bit, but it still is very, very nice for being a minifigure. Then we have the Stegosaurus, and the Stegosaurus is really quite nice as well. I mean, the plates look a little weird as far as the way they've been sculpted and the overall appearance of them, but they are nicely painted with a brownish coloration. The sculpting of the Stegosaurus in general is definitely quite nice. Beautifully painted eyes there on the face. It's again another dinosaur that doesn't have too much coloration, but it's a very natural type of a color scheme to it. You can see that it's got quite a few color tones, and everything gets darker the closer you get to the plates on the back. The spikes on the tail look pretty nice. They kind of get a little sloppy with the paint back here, as the brown that is the color of the plates and the tail spikes has kind of run down onto the tail itself, but it still looks really nice. The sculpting of this Stegosaurus isn't the most accurate. You can see the cloaca on this one as well. It's not the most accurate Stegosaurus, but it's really actually quite nice. And I really do like this guy. Not my favorite of the bunch, but still quite nice. Then we've got a Pteranodon. It also looks pretty decent. I like the paint application on this one. You can see that it's got a very dark blackish type color that is the primary body color, and then as you get down into the skin flaps, it's almost, you can see my finger through it. It's got like a very cool translucency to it, which looks really, really neat in person. So that's something that's very, very cool about this Pteranodon. The overall sculpting of the body is definitely very highly detailed, and the paint application on this one is a good bit better than we saw on the others. You've also got a nice gold type color that is the coloration of the hands, the feet, and up here on the head. And then as you go back the crest here, it gets to a darker coloration again. The beak is also a darker coloration. You see that there's a little bit of pink inside the mouth. The eyes look to be painted quite nicely as well. So for a mini Pteranodon, this one's really not that bad. I think it's a little outdated as far as a Collecta sculpt goes when it comes to like the face and everything, but it still looks really, really quite nice, and the translucency of the wings is just a huge selling point to me. Then we have a Pachycephalosaurus, which is a very nice looking Pachy. Maybe he's got a little bit of a short tail. I think he could have had a longer tail, but the paint application on this one is really cool as well. You've got quite a few different variations of green. I like that it gets to a lighter green up here on the top of the dome head. You can see that it's also got like this maroon striping going on in certain areas, and a little bit of a yellow in the stomach region, or maybe it's like a yellowish green. Also kind of has that going on the underbelly as well. Very, very nicely sculpted. Lots of very beautiful detailing crammed into something so small as this is a very small minifigure. Definitely one of the smallest of this set, and it does come with a base which is nicely painted in a brownish coloration. I feel like it's not the best Pachycephalosaurus sculpt, but it's not bad at all. The eyes appear to be painted perfectly, honestly, on both sides, and it definitely has some nice paint app. It's got a few different tones of color, giving it a very realistic and lifelike look, so not a bad Pachycephalosaurus. Then we've got the Baryonyx, which is a very, very old school and outdated Baryonyx sculpt. It looks very similar to their older deluxe Baryonyx that they used to have. I actually don't know if it's retired or not yet, but if it's not, I'm sure it will be soon because it is fairly outdated. It definitely is the same as that one. It's not the newer take that they've recently released as far as the Baryonyx goes. The sculpt and everything does look quite nice on it as far as the very minute detailing, especially in the stomach region. You can really see lots of nice skin folding going on, beautiful musculature there in the thigh, and overall it has beautiful sculpting. It's just a very outdated look for Baryonyx. I think the head sculpt looks a little bit weird as well. The teeth do appear to be painted pretty nicely. The eyes also nicely painted, have a beautiful gloss, very realistic and lifelike. And the paint app is decent on this one as well. There's not too much as far as skin tone goes, but it does still look really quite nice as far as the paint application goes. It's just really quite the outdated sculpt is all. Then we've got the Parasaurolophus, which also looks very nice. I believe this is kind of similar to the deluxe Parasaurolophus that I had actually recently reviewed here on the channel maybe about a month ago or so, and I was definitely a big fan of that one. And this mini really looks beautiful as well. I love that reddish paint up here on the head, and you also kind of get that reddish paint near the end of the tail, sort of, a little bit. It's just very subtly mixed in. Really looks cool, and the overall coloration of the Parasaurolophus is really beautiful. I'm definitely a big fan of the paint on this one. I think they've done a good job as far as kind of giving it some skin tone and realistic coloration as well. Nice brown striping that runs the length of the dinosaur. Beautiful skin texture and musculature and everything. You can see the cloaca down there. Nicely sculpted out head. Beautifully painted eyes. This eye here looks a little bit sloppy, but not too bad. So this is probably my favorite so far, would be this Parasaurolophus. Then we've got the T-Rex, the feathered version. We have actually reviewed this guy before, so we don't really need to take much of a look at him. It is a fantastic looking minifigure, it really is, and probably beats out the Parasaurolophus, which I just said was my favorite of the group so far, because this T-Rex is really nice. It's a much more updated sculpt, it's very highly detailed and beautifully painted. However, the Parasaurolophus is still awesome, but this T-Rex just probably beats it out a little bit. And the final of the group would be this MOSASAURUS, and if he could focus for us, that would be great. There we go. You can see that the sculpting of this MOSASAURUS is really beautiful. This is quite the large figure, and it has a very nice glossy appearance to it, giving it a genuine wet look like it should have, considering it lived in the ocean. Very cool paint scheme as far as this striping goes. Looks very nice, very natural, something I could see this actually being. The underside has like a light, kind of a creamy green type of a color, and this should really give you a good idea of the sculpt work on this minifigure. It really is very highly detailed. The teeth are painted. It's definitely a little sloppy, as you can see the paint is totally run up onto the face here. Aside from that area, it's not that bad, and if we look at it from over here, it really looks beautiful, even including a pink on the skin flap and the inside of the mouth. Look at that, that's really quite nice. So as far as a mini Mosasaurus goes, this one is really beautiful, and it's the largest figure here of the set, and if it didn't have that little bit of sloppiness on the face, I would say it would have taken the cake as far as the best figure of the bunch goes, but I think that's probably reserved for the Tyrannosaurus, closely followed by the Parasaurolophus and then this Mosasaurus. So as always with these minifigures, I have no intentions of measuring each and every one. I will just run the tape measure across to give you an idea of the size. You can see that they are very small, as they always are. Super tiny minifigures. They are all really quite nice. They do seem to all balance really well too, which is a huge plus as far as these figures go. None of them have any type of a habit of falling over or anything, although most of them appear to either have bases or are on 4 legs. So that probably does help significantly when it comes to the balancing of the figures. For a size comparison, there is our buddy the green Papo T-Rex, now showing you that these minifigures are extremely small, and he could just stomp each and every one of them if he wanted to. However, that Kentrosaurus would probably be like stepping on a thumbtack in the middle of the night. I don't think that's going to feel too good, Mr. Rex. However, our Rex buddy here is giving you a good idea of just how insanely small these minifigures are. Considering the size of them next to him, it's impressive just how much sculpt and detail and paint application really is included in these minifigures. It's really quite unbelievable. So as far as minifigures go, Collecta really does a fantastic job continuously on their minifigures. They really quite deliver when it comes to giving you a large number of species. I also love that not only do we get dinosaurs, but you also get marine reptiles and pterosaurs included. So it gives you a great way to start your collection with getting a whole bunch of different species all in one shot for a cheap, convenient price. The species included are all fairly popular species. There's not really too much as far as obscurities in here. Maybe the Kentrosaurus is one that's often overlooked, but I think the rest are fairly common when it comes to dinosaur models. So if you want a set with a lot of more mainstream dinos, this is probably a good choice as well. Again, the figures are really nicely and very highly detailed for the most part. Some of them may be a little bit lacking, But for the most part, as far as the sculpts go, they really look beautiful as far as detailing and all that. The paint application on some, it's not so great. Like the Kentrosaurus really has no paint at all besides the eyes, I guess. And the Triceratops could have probably had a little bit more, but it does still look really nice, fairly natural in my opinion. The rest, for the most part, look really nice, and some have more paint application than others, but what is included on all of the figures looks very realistic, very natural. It's all been beautifully applied and looks like skin color, like body color, not just paint slopped on a figure. So Collecta really does a great job overall on the paint applications of their figures. We're all well aware of that, and if you aren't, then you need to research more Collecta, because they do usually deliver a fantastic looking paint job as far as their dinosaurs go. So that is exactly what you see here with most of these minifigures. Again, sculpt wise, they're all great. Paint wise, most are great, some not so much. But regardless, the fact that you get so many awesome species, so highly detailed in such a nice cheap price is great, and it's an awesome way to get your collection really rolling and just throw a whole bunch of species in there right away. So if you do want to buy this set, I will include a link in the description for you to purchase it on Amazon.com or on EverythingDinosaur.com, where you can pick this set along with the other two that I have recently reviewed and get yourself one heck of a large collection of dinosaurs right away. This is probably my third favorite. I think I like the other two sets more than this one. However, that does not mean that this is a bad set. It is still really, really quite nice. So again, check the description, head on over, buy these very cool Collecta mini dinosaurs. But before you do that, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.